and then I'll stop the recording, stop the transcription. Yeah. Right. One of the more recent theories, and I say recent because so many of the leadership theories are so old. So for me, 2003 is very, very recent considering what we've had as leadership theories, is this idea of listening being this significant practice that leaders engage in. And I like the idea that, first of all, listening is part of every job, but managers can make it mean a heck of a lot more than what some people ascribe to it. And it's this thing here, the extraordinarization of the mundane. So listening is a mundane thing. It can be considered as someone passing and nodding a head and greeting back, etc. But what Alverson and that other person said is that we should use listening as a way of extraordinarizing the mundane, of taking these brisk moments that we have with our employees, these short, sharp interactions, but making that employee in the moment of that interaction feel as if they are the most significant, most valuable, and most important person in the entire universe. Because if you think of a manager's job and what we also see what is expected of managers, companies want their pound of flesh. So you don't get a chance to spend time with your employees as we did 20 and 30 years ago. And the suggestion is that here we bestow a specific almost importance in terms of listening, that significance of that mundane act. And it's part of leadership. And it's that kind of moment where that person believes that, in terms of the manager's eyes at least, that they are the world. And for me, listening, in fact, is an essential part of leadership, but we can turn it into a lot more when we actually make it extraordinary. Comments on that as a theory. Comments on that as a theory or as an action. How much time do you spend listening in a day? How much time on average do you spend listening in a day? How much time do we spend listening in a day? It is a sign of respect. 4 hours, 18 hours, every minute. And is that a mundane activity, Shannon Lee, or is this something that we can turn into something extraordinary? I think we don't pay enough time to or attention to the importance of listening. You need to turn it into something special. And it has to be natural. It certainly, you have to be careful not to make it fake, but it is active listening and it is being in the moment. And we'll talk about the idea of mindfulness much later in this program, about being in the moment. Well, it creates value. It also shares values in the organization. And I think we can make a lot more of listening. Love this idea, love this theory. It is something that I think we don't pay enough time to, although we spend so much time, as people say, listening. And lastly, can we separate managers and leadership in terms of their roles? Caroline, I actually saw that TED talk as well. And the idea of active interaction and questioning and understanding and communicating to the person that they have your attention at that moment, they are the most important person in the world, is very, very, very significant in a day. So there are a couple of things that we can talk about, everyday routines that make strategic leaders strategic leaders. I think there are 6 of them that we can argue are common to all your strategic leaders. The first one, the ability to speak to all forms of knowledge. And I want you to take a second with this and think of your own position and think of the various forms of knowledge that you have walking around within your head that allow you to be a manager, that allows you to do your job, but also that allows you to make a significant contribution at work. What forms of knowledge do you have? And the ability to talk to different forms of knowledge. To be a strategic leader, the expectation is that we speak different forms of knowledge. What does that mean for yourself in terms of your job? Take it. I'll give you a second to answer that one. If you're operating at a strategic leadership position, first of all, you're engaging with people from marketing, from finance, from HR, from supply chain, from a variety of other functional areas. So as much as you are not the expert in each of those areas, you need to know enough about those areas to engage and understand. And you've got it spot on, Elizma, to be able to engage effectively in terms of those various aspects. And there's no chance that a strategic leader will be expert in both, in every one of those forms. But what we expect is a significant amount of knowledge. And again, that comes from learning. The second one is to look at and interact with and guide the different behaviors that we interact with. So what we try and do from a strategic leader perspective is we promote ethicality in our decision making. So we talk about morality, we talk about the importance of behaving ethically. And then it's about questioning and query, because if you are to take strategic decisions, you need to understand a variety of opinions. And remember, all of this sometimes gets influenced by politics and about power and by individual interest. And to see through that mist and that cloud, essentially what makes you an effective strategic leader. And then display appropriate emotions. Give me, in terms of your own job, the range of emotions that you consider to be appropriate. The range of emotions that you consider to be appropriate. Finding paint because I need to draw something. What is the range of emotions? I had a pharmacist friend explain this to me once. No screaming, swearing, arguing. Okay. Level headed at all times. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What is the range of emotions that you dare to display at work? Who lets loose sometimes? Patience, oh gosh, and empathy. Who lets loose sometimes where they might raise their voice, limit frustration, remaining calm? My gosh, excitement, frustration can still, oh, that's fantastic to know. Yeah, you have your circle of trust. Everyone has their circle of trust. I love how you've reframed what a click is, Elizma. Circle of trust sounds so much better than click, because clicks are bad. Circles of trust are good. Is it a click, Elizma? A little steam comes off. Yeah, Kyle raises his voice. Oh my gosh, your HR manager, that's good. Oh, being patient. Yeah, I had a pharmacist friend that said, without antidepressants and things like that, what often happens is that the range of emotions that you go through have higher highs and lower lows. And when you're on antidepressants, what happens is the antidepressants moderate the lows and moderate the highs. And I worry sometimes that it is this set of parameters that guide our behavior at work. So you don't always truly see someone's personality. No, HR is a tough job, is a tough job. The stuff they see, the stuff they see. Is it fair to say that what happens at work is that we are moderating our emotions all the time? What if your personality is that? What if your personality is a lot bigger than that? What are we missing out on in terms of the person? I think you're right, guys. This is the limits of our emotions that we display at work. Well, where's your authentic self? Because that's such a good point, Sandra. Where's your authentic self in that? Where's your uniqueness in that? So you become the Coke Light version of life. You know, you are the light beer version of life. You're the skimmed milk version of life. I don't know, have any other analogies. The Coke Zero version of life. I worry that that is the case. And I think we miss out on so much. I know of people that will get in their car at the end of the day and put the music on loud and vent, will scream at the tops of their voices because that's all they can do because they've been frustrated at work. And I worry about that because there is so much creativity that lives in these areas. Red wine works. What? Well, I haven't seen the video of where the video in my car the other day. I was reversing and it was a video of me running over my wife. It wasn't a good video. We have to keep regulating. I would like to think that this is a class where we don't regulate. I really and truly want to think that this is a class where we shouldn't regulate and that we allow some additional emotions to happen. I worry that this is what organizations expect of us. And that's essentially what will get you ahead in the organization. And you cannot your whole self, but to remain respectful. I like that idea, but the whole self is absolutely essential. So, yeah, in terms of moderating our behavior, it really is this idea of appropriate emotions, appropriate emotion. Sometimes we need a little bit more than that, I think. It is also the use of metaphors. So this is quite strange because the world is so complicated and because the world is so unpredictable that sometimes you have to talk. And I'm going to use this word very carefully and please don't be offended by this and report me. But you almost have to talk in parables. Who is religious here and want to explain how how parables are used in the Bible? How are parables used in the Bible? That's storytelling to make very powerful points. And I think this is part of that. Sometimes you have to make insane comparisons. Sometimes you have to frame things in the form of stories. Well, it's storytelling. And again, you're right, Kyle, to make points. I think the truth is that strategic managers can never be specific. So you can share visions, you can share mission statements, and you can share objectives. But within that, you have to tell stories. Remember, part of organizational culture is to share stories. Kyle, I do it all the time. I tell stories so often that I sometimes think my job is that of storyteller. And also remember, in terms of South Africa, storytelling is such a powerful way of conveying history. And I think we sometimes lose that ability, in particular, when we look at our African cultures, where storytelling is so important. It becomes part of being a strategic leader. And then using your history. One of the key points that I think companies sometimes forget, in particular when times are tough, is to remind people of when we've had other bad times and remind people of how the company made it through. It builds resilience and it reminds people of resilience. I think we sometimes go into blind panic, but we forget that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, there was more blind panic. And it's important from a resilience perspective to remind people that we've done this before. This is not the first time that petrol prices are through the sky, that whatever the heck else is happening in the world. I love this idea of what a strategic leader is and what practices make good strategic leaders. Be careful that this is not a question in the exam. I love asking this as a question in the exam. Okay, so you will see it in one of the exams. I don't even know whether this is an exam or whether it's a summative project, and I'm not going to try and remember now. Any questions, any comments at this point? Okay, well, that was worth it, the last two theories and spending time on it. Okay, guys, I am going to stop the recording. It's a scene exam. Okay, that's wonderful, Caroline. So you'll see that this will be one of the questions, and we'll talk about what a scene exam is closer to the time. I'm just going to stop the recording because this is the end of Learning Unit 1.